Tej Talks YouTube channel. Please like, comment, subscribe and share. Tell your friends about the channel. Mark, we are here again and we are talking about builders or contractors, but really we're talking about how you project manage them and how I just fail to project manage. Project management is hard.
Yeah.
In its natural, of anything, of an IT thing, of whatever. But working with certain humans who maybe don't have the best intentions as an industry, sorry builders, but some of you, to help, like project management, I mean, how do you do it so effectively? Just tell me the secrets.
Yeah, it's tough, it is really tough, and there isn't a sweet science to it whatsoever, because the truth of it is that every builder is completely different. Every builder is, unfortunately, they lie. They can tell you. They can tell fibs. They can tell and you've got to manage that. It's really about. It is quite a lot of man management. So the tools that I sort of use. I mean, I think even if I'm working on a project that's 60, 70 grand total refurb, or if I'm working on something that's $1 million or $2 million refurb, you've got to relate to the contractor, and by that I mean that you've got to be friendly with them, not too friendly. You've got to speak to them on their level and be responsive whenever they need something. You need to earn their respect a little bit, because you can't be walked all over. If they think that they can pull the lies behind your back, if they think they can cut corners, then it's never going to work, and that doesn't work on any scale. But the one thing is that with smaller contractors and cheaper builds, if you go for the cheapest, or if you are naturally doing a less profitable job, they are naturally going to try and cut corners, unfortunately, and tell maybe more obvious lies. And so it's all about how you manage that, and I think you have to be there and speaking to them. I speak to all my contractors. I've had 6 on site at the same time this year, 18 flats and houses that I've been building for investors, and every day I pick up the phone on, even if I don't have anything to say, I just call them, how they're doing, what they're doing, what are you working on. And I think it's also about just after you've done a few of them, you get better at knowing what things cost, how long things take, because that is the critical measure when it comes to contractors. It is how long does something take and how much is it going to cost you. Especially if you're working with chippies, you're working with plumbers, you're working with, you need to know what their time is, what they value their time at, and how long is it going to take them. And that's a very easy way of, when you get a quotation through, you go through it and you think, okay, they're doing all the skirting in this room, they're doing the plastering or whatever. You look at it and you think that looks a bit expensive. I've done a development and they've done it quicker than that. You ring the contractor, whoever it is, and you say, okay, so what do you generally charge on a day rate to clients, whatever? And generally, how long do you think it's realistic going to take you to do this room or to put this skirting? And there you have it within an instant, and that sometimes they don't even realise you've done it if you do it quite slyly. You've got your cost, and you might have to add on. It's fair that contractors, they add on 20% for their profit or whatever their percentage margin is. But you've got your calculation, and I guarantee that will probably be usually cheaper than what they're saying. But I think, going back to your question, is just that I think it's about if you're managing a few different builds or even just one, it's absolutely writing down everything. If I don't get something done in a day, it goes into my next page, very systemised and logic, but it's just the way that I work. I write everything down, and if it doesn't get done, you pass it over to the next day. And then it's just about, I'd say really relating to them, knowing what you're talking about, or at least appearing like you know what you're talking about.
I think that's important, right? Because it's easy for a builder to say, oh no, we're going to do this, or no, we don't need to silicon that. If you don't know, which I think a lot of property investors don't, lack of interest, or they don't realise how much I think you have to know, at least with lower end builders, they'll just say, don't worry about the kitchen, no, I don't need silicon needed, no damp, no bathroom, no, we don't need a tank for the walls, it's fine. And so would you agree that depending on the level, you need to know a fair amount?
You need to learn it. You need to be observant. If it's your first one, you need to be there. just ask questions, and get to know it. Just watch them do it. But get around the building trade. If you're not from a building trade background, which I'm from an architecture background, but wasn't on site building. But that doesn't mean that you can't be inquisitive, you can't be on site, you can't be asking questions. And after a couple, you're going to start picking up things. You know how long things take. So people can't take the piss, basically, And
they will.
Yeah, of course they will. And that's it's the critical point.
And do you use any software like Asana, Monday, Trello to manage your everything?
So I use Asana for managing tasks. I use my notebook a lot, and I also use Microsoft Projects. So really simple tool. Essentially, I use it for a project by project basis. Another thing I didn't touch on is that you need to also have a construction time frame, whether that's even just on the back of your jotter in terms of how long is this project going to take.
Like a Gantt chart as well.
Yeah. So that Microsoft Projects is a Gantt chart essentially, and you put everything down from your schedule of works. You say they've got to plaster this room, they've got to decorate it, they've got to put the flooring in, they've got to put the kitchen in. But you put each one down, one after another, and you put a time on how long you think that is. And before the project starts, I would sit down with the builder and just say, okay, I've got 5 days for the plastering. Do you think that's acceptable? He says, I think it's going to be 6. Okay, we can agree at 6, that's fine. That's the time. And that then influences the decorating, or that influences the kitchen or the flooring. And it's all listed together. It sounds complicated, but it's actually really, really simple. And it actually just sort of gets things straight. But the one thing that it does do is it lets you hold them accountable for it as well. So, you can mark down the line, you can have it on the wall if you want, and you can mark down the line saying, right, we're on the 15th of January, you haven't done this, this and this, why? You're asking for money, we're doing evaluation, you want 10 grand, why should I give it to you? You haven't done it properly, I'll give you 5. It's quite an important procedure, because otherwise you don't really know where you are in a project then. And it just doesn't, it is quite a simple thing to do, but it's quite effective as well.
And would you, when it comes to projects, how many of yours have been over budget or delayed?
Starting out, we've had a few,
So how have you then brought that?
Yeah, so it's very, very difficult. You have to be. It's a very, very difficult conversation, especially if you have contractors that are they're taking longer. COVID aside, but they're taking longer. They are. It's costing more money. They're adding extras. It's a very difficult situation to be in. But it's important that you have things lined up at the beginning. So, I mean, now if I have worked on projects where we've even put in at the bottom end, if this is delayed by a certain number of weeks, you can make reference to the bank interest that you're incurring. You can make interest, and you can say to them as a real, this is a hard line. If this starts getting pushed beyond, especially on the bigger projects, there are severe costs to those delays, and you can say to them, look, you are costing me this amount every week.
Do you put in penalties to say we're going to charge you that?
You can. There's not many times that I've ever enforced. I try. It's not a comfortable position to be in, because you're reducing their profit margin, but they're costing you money. But I think it's just having those things. If you can have it in place, that you have a construction time frame, you're friendly, relatable, you talk to them, you make sure that your stuff is on time as well. So if you're ordering, a lot of the stuff is, if you're ordering the kitchen, or if you're ordering anything, the furniture or whatever they need, the light fittings, make sure your stuff is on time as well. So it's because it's the easiest thing to sort of blame them, but you need to make sure they've got everything on site. If you've got everything there for them to complete the works, then you could be putting the blame onto them and saying, look, I've got everything in check.
And when you speak to them every day, do they kind of feel like, oh god, fucking it's wrong again? Do they feel micromanaged, or do they know from day one this is how I'm working with you?
Yeah, I think it's so because I do work for investors and clients, and I need to report back to them, and for my own projects, my own investments, I want to know as well. But it's just building up a bit of a rapport with them. You can't be it needs to be a bit more sly than sort of saying, so what are you doing today? How many people on site? It needs to be a bit more sort of friendly and sort of and they get into the rhythm, and actually an 8 a.m, 9 a.m. call, and also it's not the worst thing in the world, but I think you've got to be a bit sort of creative with it. The other thing is actually just being on site. So if things start to slow down, and it is, towards the end of a project, things just seem to get slower and slower and slower.
Yeah.
It's actually just being there on site. You'll be surprised about how much work they'll do if you take your laptop and you sit in the living room and you're just working. But also the thing is that if it slows down, sometimes it can be that the builders, they want to ask you questions. They want to see, how do you want this? How do you want that? And if you're not always there, so I have done situations where I've just gone to site and sat there. And sort of,
it's like when the teacher's in the room.
It does. You'll be surprised. And then obviously the last thing is just formalising everything. So if you've got a schedule of works and you've got a time frame, just put it into an email, black and white. Say this should have been done by here. This should have been whatever. Please, can you do this, and this by next week? I'll come on Thursday, Friday. That's really important as well. Once it's in black and white, I think they take that a little bit more seriously.
And do you work on a minor work schedule, JCT, design and build? How do you normally do it?
It varies, yeah.
Small you always have a contract?
Yes, yeah. Small stuff mine works all the time. Anything that's below, 200, it goes up to quite a big bracket. Anything bigger, I would always try and go for a design build, but the contract does get more complicated at that point. You get sort of a 40-page document, you've got to go through, you've got to check all the terms and everything. But it does work out. I mean, design and build is just a little bit better in terms of the contractor has to take responsibility. So once you agree that price, you give them the design intent of the drawings. You're saying, look, this is going to cost us £500,000 or £1 million, £2 million. I want it done for that price, and you need to get it done for that price. So if you need to think of a better way of doing the detail of the drainage system, then that's fine. That's not down to me. That's down to you. It's contractor.
Why would any contractor sign that though?
Well, because they can do things. They agree in the price at the beginning, and they can do things cheaper.
Because I hate if something unforeseen came up and I'm like, I'm covering that.
But all the responsibility and liability is all with the contractor. So you essentially give the keys to them, and it's their property. So until it's finished, they give it back to you, and then it's your property. It's a lot, but it's also you're covered within the contract, so they would have to rectify.
And it's easy to sue them if they.
It's really in depth, and it's heavily supported that angle. But you would only do that on a certain value. You wouldn't be doing that on your buy to let. It has to be at a certain point where
it's serious. Like any mistake can be serious.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to sue or fire a bad builder?
No, I've never had to. I've threatened to say, I want you to leave site. I've had very big argument matches on scaffolding. It was quite high up where I thought he might push me over the edge. But never had to sue anyone actually. But yeah,
I guess that's testament to the planning and contracts you put in beforehand, and then the work you personally do for your investors during it.
Yeah.
Because if you were a shit project manager, somebody would be getting sued. But if you're doing it right, there shouldn't be a need for it.
It's all about putting out fires. That's what we do, like investors and project managers. It's just about putting out fires.
I create the fire myself, then I have to put it out. So literally every day. That's a really good point though, because I think that highlights how important project management is. And the fact that you're talking every single day, and you're saying some of these projects take months and months.
Years,
like that's a lot of mental. It's exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. It's super tiring, and it to do that alongside your own investments, and it's very tricky because there's always issues. Every day there's issues.
Yeah.
And they're always the most important issue. So like you're always, someone will say to you, Mark, I've got to have this, and you're like, well, I've got to do this, and this, but they need it now. So it's tiring. So you really want to get to a point where you're doing it just for your own projects, because that's more than enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, even for my own projects, I've decided no more, even for buy-to-lets, I'm getting a PM in, or someone to just sign off work. I used to be like, I don't need a PM. Now I'm like, look at my blood pressure, I need a freaking PM. Cool, amazing tip, Mark. Thanks for sharing this with us. Don't forget to subscribe.